Oi, tudo bem? Sejam muito bem-vindos ao Cultura de Excelência. Eu sou a Karen Ross e um prazer receber vocês aqui. Aqui na Voitto teremos encontros semanais onde vamos conversar com mulheres de todo o mundo sobre propósito, melhorias do processo e gentileza. Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm Karen Ross, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here. Here at Voitto, we'll be having weekly meetings where we'll talk with women from around the world about purpose, process improvement, and kindness. So today, I want to welcome everybody and remind everybody that, as you'll see, there's a QR code on your screen. You can download the handbook with that QR code. You'll find lots of cool information about the whole web series and lots of interesting and useful things that you can use. So today, it's time to get started, and we have a fabulous guest with us today, Ruth Archer, and we're going to be talking about what you need to know to be lean in your college years and how to transition from college into a career. Hello, Ruth.
Hi, Karen. How are you today?
I'm totally fabulous. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day.
Excellent. First of all, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and also where you live in the United States, because you live in such an unbelievably beautiful place?
Thank you for inviting me to your web series. So I'm the director of continuous improvement at Michigan Technological University, and that is located in Michigan in the United States of America. And if you look at a map of the United States of America, you'll see that Michigan has two pieces. So let's see. We use the hands in our state to show the two different pieces of Michigan. And my university is located up in the crook of the thumb. So this piece right around it is Lake Superior. So we are, our temperatures are moderated by this great lake. But when I say moderated, I mean we have a full fat winter with tons of snow from the lake. So and we have all 4 seasons. It's beautiful here.
Yep, and you're one of the colleges that has a ski hill associated.
Yes, we have our own ski hill for our students. So at this university, I manage the continuous improvement activities, including training people on lean thinking and trying to integrate lean activities into the day-to-day work of the students and the faculty and the staff. And I also teach a couple of academic courses on lean principles and culture.
Well, Ruth, you are absolutely when we decided that one of the topics was going to be how we can incorporate lean for students at university and teach students lean so that they can help transition to that in their career. When I was thinking about guests, I'm like, the perfect person to talk about this topic is Ruth Archer. So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to start out with a couple of questions for you. And we all know that being in college is challenging. And right, especially with COVID-19, that even adds an extra level of college. So how can we integrate lean with other subjects?
So the practice field is all around you, really. You start with the problem that you're trying to solve, and you want to work through the plan, do, check, act cycle. So let's say that you are in a course and you took a test and you were disappointed by the results. So you can disconnect yourself from those results by saying, it's the process that I use to prepare for that test. It's not me and my ability. So then you look at the test, you look at the questions that you missed, you say, how could I have known these answers? What should I have been studying to be able to answer these questions? And then you change how you run an experiment, you change how you are preparing for an exam, and then try it again at the next exam, and you'll do a little bit better, and you continue that cycle. And in that way, you can learn and grow using lean thinking. And the same applies to any work activities that you're doing as well. When it doesn't come out the way you wanted it to, just go through a plan, do, check, act cycle.
I love that, because sometimes for students, it's so discouraging, and they're so down on themselves if they don't do well. Having actually a process, PDCA, to use to say, it's all right, it's the process, right? And I can improve a little bit over time. It really makes students feel so much better.
It does. Because it's not you, it's just that it's your approach, what process you used for studying. And a lot of times you have to, when you go from being in high school to college, you actually have to shift your approach. You have to, what worked for you before doesn't always work for you later. And using lean thinking can really help you make that shift smoothly.
I love it. It's about learning to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to learn. And isn't that what going to college is?
Yes, it is. If you can learn one thing in college, it's how to teach yourself, because that's what you're going to need for the whole rest of your life.
Absolutely. Well, question number 2 is, how and where can students from different fields of engineering learn about lean and continuous improvement and actually practice their knowledge?
So this can be more difficult depending on whether your university is actively practicing lean. Like Michigan Tech has hired a director of continuous improvement, and so you can seek that person out, and they can help you find these opportunities. But even if that isn't the case, you can just go to your course catalog for the courses that your university offers and search on keywords like lean or quality, process improvement, problem solving, Six Sigma. All of these keywords will turn up courses that are offering a lot of the essential elements of lean and lean thinking. And so you'll find classes in the business department, in mathematics, in engineering, in humanities, all over campus that are talking about these principles. So, and then practice is just trying to apply it in the work that you're doing.
You have a very specific way of teaching and I've had the joy of being there and seeing, with your student facilities. Can you tell us a little bit more about your specific program that you've created at MTU?
So for the employees at Michigan Tech, we've started a lean systems training program that operates. It's 7 days of training, and it's over a 6-month period of time. And in that training, we actually work really hard to teach the thinking, the respect for people, conflict management skills, facilitation skills, listening skills, as well as lean processes, methods, and tools. And then in between the classes, they get homework, just like any student gets homework. They get homework assignments, and they have to work together in pairs to talk about the problems that they're encountering with their homework and grow and learn in between.
I'm glad that you brought up the topic of homework, because with all of my coaching clients and with people I'm helping, and coming from an academic family myself, my husband is a professor, my father was a professor, homework is so important. That practice. And lots of times we think that, we don't have an opportunity to practice things. But how can students really think about different kinds of opportunities? Like, if you had to suggest a process for a student to practice on outside of class, what would you suggest?
One of the things that when I hire student employees, one of the things that they often do first is just make a simple personal Kanban, so that we always want to work to make our problems visible. And a personal Kanban, and there's a website, if you personalkanban.com or something, like it's very open about how to go through this process. But it takes all of the different things that you have to do and makes them visible and helps you to arrange them in such a way that you can see what it is you need to work on next. What's the very next thing that I need to do? Because having a list of 54 things to do isn't helpful if you aren't able to identify that very next step.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. And some of the suggestions I give to students too, I'm working with a very nice young student now who called me up just out of the blue, is that everybody has to do laundry at home, right? That's a great process. Something that you do all the time has a machine in it. Everybody has to clean up the dishes from food. Everybody has to get food. There's a million opportunities around us. And as you said earlier, the study process is a great opportunity on its own.
Yes, there's the lessons from learning about lean apply just as well to our personal life, including respect for people, because it can alter. I've had many people who've been through my training who tell me that it's changed their relationships with their kids and with their significant others. So just because it's a different way of interacting with the world.
Absolutely. All right. So how can other experiences like volunteering be important for academic and professional development? And I love this because volunteering is so important to give back from ourselves. And oftentimes students, maybe if they're learning, think, I don't know enough to contribute. What do you think, Ruth?
So I actually had a student who graduated from Michigan Tech, and right after he graduated, he realized what he really wanted to do was go into the quality field. And he's an engineer, and he wanted to go into the quality field. And he called me and he said, "What can I do?" Well, he couldn't really take classes any longer without having to pay, an extra fee as a graduate. So we did some brainstorming, and I know about a local nonprofit organization called Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly, where they've invited me to come in and talk about lean, and they've been starting to implement it. So I told this young man to go and do volunteer work there and work to try to implement lean, observe what they were doing, learn from them. And he did end up getting a job based on his work at this nonprofit. He did end up getting a job as a quality engineer.
That's totally fabulous. So actually, he helped other people, and in helping other people, it helped himself as well.
It did.
Totally cool. So, what tips would you give for students on finding a mentor for lean, for kindness, for leadership right from the beginning of their career? Because, students spend a lot of time maybe learning academic subjects, and then there's that transition from being a student into the working world. What kind of tips do you have for them?
So this is a case where you a lot of times have to come out of your comfort zone to find a mentor. Anytime that you recognize that when you're talking to somebody, you really enjoy talking to them, or you find their advice particularly useful, mentorship is all about a relationship. So just identifying a person that you don't know and contacting them can be a lot more difficult and also a bad fit for you. So if you're talking to a professor, or you meet somebody in a networking event and you like them, ask them. Just don't necessarily ask for them to be your mentor right away, but ask them for another conversation. So, and then as you continue to ask for conversations, and you have to kind of put yourself out there, and sometimes people will say no, but that's like with any kind of sales job, right? You have to get 50 no's. So just say, all right, I'm going to ask until I get, and I know that I need to get 50 no's before I get the big yes that I want. And so that's really hard for some students. Just ask. Can I make an appointment? Can I set up a meeting to talk with you some more? I really enjoy our conversations.
When I first started working, and I was thinking about I wish I had a mentor. Someone gave me the super good advice that you're giving of ask someone. It had actually never occurred to me that I, as the person who wanted mentoring, could ask someone. I thought it worked the other way around, and that just that simple change to just go and someone who really I looked up to, who I felt their advice was super valuable when they. So I think that is a super super important for students, especially who may not have the confidence yet. Ask. And one of the things I really found in the process improvement world, people tend to say yes. We're very kind and welcoming.
We are. I really like the community of lean practitioners. They just a group of great people, and they want to help you be better. So what better group to ask for a mentor, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're all about learning. So we tend to be the people, if someone asks us to mentor them, we tend to say we would love to do it.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to take some questions from Voitto's fabulous students, totally appropriate for this discussion. So the first one is from a student who says they're planning to start a study group with colleagues focused on process improvement. Do you have some tips to give them to get their study group started?
Yes, absolutely. So I run several communities of practice in different aspects of the work that I do. And first, you have to get some people to agree to give it a try with you. So you have to think about how you can convince people to suspend disbelief, give you the benefit of the doubt, and say this is going to be worth my time, because we all have a really busy lives. Once you do that, make it as engaging as you can. So make it easy for people to attend. So if people didn't have time to prepare, how could they participate anyway? Ask the kinds of questions that draw in people's knowledge and learning that already exists, so that they can share their experiences with you. Plan to have somebody do a short teach back on a lean related topic, and then do an activity based on that teach back, and then have a conversation about how they might apply that concept into their regular work or into their personal lives. And then go around and ask people what other things that they're doing that are related to the lean thinking. So have it change up, have it be very interactive, and have it so that even if somebody isn't prepared, they still feel comfortable coming.
I think that's great, and we can include everyone. And one of the fun activities that I've done with students in a group like that is to go to like one of the fast food restaurants and order food and watch the process of other people going through the line, because then you can have a discussion. You can again break the ice with people by having a snack together and food together. And I found that was one of the fun things that I did with some student groups too.
A lot of people really love the use of affinity diagrams, which are really good for processing verbal data. And a very shared experience for most students is the idea of a library. So just a simple activity is to ask people to write down what would they do to improve the library, or anything that you can think of that is a shared experience for your group. Parking is often a good one. What would you do to improve parking? And then you use the affinity diagram to group those ideas, and then label them, and you can present your ideas to the organization and say, we had a conversation around these, and these are some of the ideas we came up with.
Oh my goodness, that's a fabulous idea too. And I'm sure the school would be like so happy to, they don't even have to spend time going and looking for voice of customer.
That's right.
They have it already. That's totally fun and fabulous idea. Okay, so how can students learn more about networking while they're in college? And I think this is a super important topic, because especially maybe for people in the engineering field also, or people who are more introverted. I'm not sure that we give them, some of those skills that they need to create that network and go out and start talking to people and building those connections that are really going to help them as they transition from being in college to being out there in the working world.
Sure. So just applying lean thinking, right? So you think, oh, I want to have a huge network. I want to know 500 people. Well, that starts with one person at a time. And so you think, all right, I want to be able to. I'm going to go to this networking event. It can seem very intimidating to somebody who's introverted, thinking I have to meet all these people. So just say, I'm going to meet 2 people. That's all. And I'm going to convince a friend to come with me. And for the rest of the event, I'm going to sit and stand there and talk to my friend, but I'm going to get out of my bubble and meet 2 people at this event. And then you run that experiment and you see how it goes. Think about how you might approach them, what you might say, come up with some questions in advance to ask. And then, also, if you Google, you can find all kinds of good questions to ask. And how do I exit? How do I exit this group comfortably and then go back to my safe space?
Yes, I love that. And actually, it's funny because when I think about how you and I met, we really met through networking. We were at a conference, and a friend of mine actually went to a session of yours, and then afterwards introduced me to you because they said, "Oh, I think this is a person that you would really like to meet." So we actually met through networking. So I think it's also great if students can understand that, they can ask their friend to introduce them to someone, or they can introduce a friend of theirs to someone. And I was trying to think about this with just today, how many years ago that was, because it's so many years ago. And look, we've remained friends after all these years, and we've met so many other people from each other's network.
Yes, it's been wonderful. I'm so happy that we met.
Me too. All right. Well, last question. What books or materials would you recommend to help students define their way in lean and purpose ed? I think this is a great question because as we've been chatting, I've been looking at all the books in the background.
Oh, these books. I'm learning a little bit more about managing your processes. So it's not just improving processes, but how do you manage them as a overall looking at them from a hierarchical point of view. And so those books are there to help me. I've been reading them and putting tabs on them and writing in them, and to help me learn more about how to do that. Back to that idea that in the real life, you have to teach yourself things, right? So of course, I would recommend your book, The Toyota Way to Service Excellence. So I really resonate with books that are about the thinking, that are about the culture. And so you can learn tools, but people start freezing when you start teaching tools. Then they're like, well, what if I don't do it right? And what if I forget a step? But if you can focus on the problem that you're trying to solve, go through the plan, do, check, act cycle, have respect for people and humility, you are going to do just fine. That's all you need to do continuous improvement. So your book, Jeff Laker's The Toyota Way, second edition, he brought in a whole bunch of some of the newer ideas about culture. So I really like his book. Katie Anderson's book, Learning to Lead, has many cultural components. And then there's a short little book called The Spirit of Kaizen by Robert Maurer, and it's just about the thinking and applying it to a medical practice, actually. So I enjoy that book as well. Also, there's a lot of resources available on the internet, and I actually just put a list of some of my favorite free resources on a website that I kind of integrate with a lot. It's leanhe.org. So it's a lean in higher education website, but the principles apply to any place. And so it has a link to Mark Graben and Karen Martin, and just a lot of the Gemba Academy, a lot of places that have free resources that you can access to just better your understanding of the principles of lean. So
that's totally cool. And actually, Katie Anderson and Karen Martin have both been guests on this here on this series as well. Can you just take a moment or two and tell us a little bit more about lean in higher education?
So lean in higher education. So it's very interesting activity, just because we have three distinct groups of people. We have the administrative side, which implements lean in a very much more traditional fashion. And then we have faculty who are a lot like independent suppliers in a lot of ways. And so we attempt to integrate with them in such a way that they know enough about lean to work well within our systems. And then students just trying to create an immersive lean environment so that they can not only learn about it in the classroom, but also experience it in their interactions with personnel and in their student employment. So it can be challenging, because you have to continuously be thinking about who your audience is, who's my audience right now, and how do I want to talk about lean to them. But our goal is to get students in the classroom with a calm mind, ready to learn, and we want faculty in doing their research in their labs and teaching their classes with a calm mind, ready to learn. And anything that gets in the way of that is an opportunity for improvement.
I love that. The thing is, that's the value for students when they come to school, not just to learn, but to learn how to learn for the rest of their lives. Because as you said, we're going to be teaching ourselves things the whole rest of our lives. Well, Ruth, as I said, when I thought who would be a great guest for this topic on the show, you were the first person who came to mind. And now that we've recorded this, you were absolutely the most fabulous choice. Thank you for sharing all of your insights. Do you have a few parting words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our viewers with today?
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I would just recommend that you connect with me on LinkedIn. And the nice thing about LinkedIn is the more that you connect with people that are in the lean and continuous improvement community, the more your newsfeed will shift toward the kind of information that you're interested in learning about. So just feel free to connect with me. You should be connected to Karen. Most of the people I know in the lean community, you don't even have to write them a note. Just ask to connect and they'll say yes. So remember that lean is all about turning knowing into doing. And so you have to, once you learn something, you have to, even though you're just a beginner and even though you're new and you're maybe not going to do it right, you have to try it and then reflect on how it turned out, create a new experiment and try again. And that's how you become an expert in lean. You have to start off not being good at it.
I think that's wise words, not just for students, Ruth, but really for all of us at every stage in our life and every stage in our lean career. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and I hope that we will be able to see each other in person soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Karen.
You're very welcome. All right, everybody, before we end this today's fabulous episode, here's some of the wonderful insights that Ruth Archer gave us. Number one, using lean thinking helps you in all aspects of your life. Always try to apply that thinking to the work that you're doing, whether it's how to improve your studying, how to get a better grade in your course, how to improve your laundry. There's plenty of opportunities. Insight number 2, making a personal Kanban can help you to organize and visualize what the next thing to do is. And when you think about being a student, there's so many different things to do. All of your classes have different deadlines, different things you need to read, different projects you need to do. This is a great way to practice a lean tool. Insight number 3, volunteering is super important to help us grow as people. It's kind. Volunteering to help someone else, even if you aren't confident 100% in everything that you know, that kind spirit of helping is going to help other people, and it's going to help us grow as well. Number 4, having a mentor can really help along the way. And if you're not sure how to get a mentor, really look around for somebody who you really, what they say resonates, who you really look up to, and go and ask them if they could start by having a chat with you and be your mentor. And last insight, number 5, participating in a study group is a wonderful way for developing your knowledge. And we gain courage when we're with a group. So get a group of your friends together and start practicing sharing improvements. Maybe go to a restaurant, look at the flow in the restaurant, and even look at the processes in your own college, at the library, as Ruth said, with parking, and see what you can do to enhance them. Oh, one more insight. Nobody becomes an expert in lean overnight. And that is absolutely true. So practice, 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 practice. Be kind to yourself while you're practicing your practice. Be kind to others. And coupled with your studies, it's going to really help you improve. That's what being a student is all about, learning and learning how to learn. Well, everybody, that's it for this week's episode of Cultura de Excelencia. Thank you for joining me and my fabulous guest, Ruth Archer, today. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next week, and then we're going to be talking about how companies can encourage the creation of female lean leaders. So we'll be speaking with another great woman in lean, and until then, I hope you have a fabulous week filled with purpose, process improvement, and kindness. Bem, pessoal, esse foi o primeiro episódio do Cultura de Excelência. Muito obrigada por juntar a mim e a Ruth Archer hoje. Espero ver todos vocês na semana que vem, onde vamos falar sobre como as empresas podem incentivar a criação de mulheres como líderes lean, com mais uma mulher incrível no lean. Até lá, espero que você tenha uma semana fabulosa e cheia de propósitos, melhora de processos e gentileza. Ciao, ciao, everybody.